Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, September 28th, 2018. It's been a very busy day today. First, I want to start by saying that my thoughts and prayers are with the people in Palu, Indonesia. Today, after the earthquake, I arrived at my place of employment and felt the need to announce about the tsunami that had happened and the compassion that I felt for these people, because in the earthquake report that I did this morning, they reported that there was a tsunami warning, and then later it was canceled. And not more than about an hour and a half after we reported this live, I saw the video on severeweather.eu of this tsunami that hit today, and we'll talk more about that as we get into the program. So I left the links to the videos in the description, as I really felt like that this was something that wasn't going to get out there automatically, and that there was already misinformation, total opposite of what was reported. Thanks to Mari for putting out another video, some footage, horrible footage of what has happened over there today with people who are told that the tsunami warning was canceled. But I'll get more into that. Let's go ahead and report some space weather real quick. Taking a look at our solar wind speeds, we're sitting at a 381.7 kilometers per second with a density of 13.6. Our sun is once again blank, and this is 15 days in a row, making it 157 days without sunspots. We'll also talk about that as well later in the program. There was an article that surfaced today, Dr. Tony Phillips. Our KP indices are sitting at a 2 with a 24-hour max of 3. And we've already been checking out our SDO in motion. And here we have some coronal hole action that we saw last night, talking about coming from the eastern limb. This is expected to affect Earth's magnetic field by October 2nd through the 3rd. So maybe some minor disruptions in geomagnetic storms possible. But right now, it is looking like October 2nd through the 3rd when this could arrive. Other than that, nothing to report. 0 sunspots. Nothing looking like it's coming around the bend as well. Our TSI is holding steady at 1360.6631. We've seen the levels elevate a little bit into the 0.7 values and as high as 0.8. And here recently, we are starting to see a new trend now where it is declining ever so slightly. And like I said, we will see this over time, and that's why I try to zoom this graph out a little bit. This is only showing us data from July 22nd through September 17th. Or actually, this is for the, September 17th as far as this goes out. So you can see through the last couple months how it's gone up and down. It's really, but if you put a line in the middle of it, there's not much movement up or down. Only here recently in the tail end of this graph have we seen a little bit of declination in the chart. And as we stated at the beginning, many people were reporting about this incident today. Tsunami waves struck parts of Indonesia after powerful 7.5 earthquake hit the island. This was at 10:02 UTC. Tsunami waves up to 10 feet hit the city of Palu, and growing tourist resort with population of about 350,000. The nearby fishing town of Dangla, population is 280,000, both located some 50 miles from the epicenter after the Indonesian authorities lifted the tsunami alert. Unofficial reports received by 1800 UTC mentioned at least 6 deaths, including one caused by the earlier 6.1 and dozens injured. The second quake was felt very strongly. We expect more damage and more victims. Numerous buildings have been destroyed and damaged, as well as roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. Some 20,000 people are estimated to have felt the severe shaking, 73,000 very strong, and 604,000 strong. 1.3 million moderate, and 12 million light to weak. Here's some of the pictures, and the one that strikes me the most is down here with the before and after picture of this bridge. There is one video footage of the tsunami wave, and the internet was lit up with the videos today. Here is the impact of this wave as it comes in this billboard. Now, they said it was a 10-foot wave. At least 10 foot, if not higher, possibly 15 feet. I've seen other people talking that it could have been a 30-foot wave. Here's the picture I want to show you. This is from the earthquake and the tsunami. There's the after. That's a pretty big structure there. There was another article that I found, and here's the thing, guys. What I don't like about this, and I guess that no one's trying to hide anything, but the seriousness of this event, to me, and the lack of information, which they're all the way across the world. But what I found interesting was that when we reported this morning on the earthquake, the 7.5, and right before we went live, I even looked at Mari and said, wow, Fox News and ABC are the #1, 2 people that are reporting on this story. And it was just weird that these two mainstream media channels that usually don't cover, I mean, how many times did PNG have 6.5 and higher earthquakes? How many times have we seen volcanoes erupt and 150,000 people evacuated, and that doesn't get talked about? So what I guess I'm saying is that there are people that knew this was a big deal from the minute it happened, which is why Fox News and ABC News, I saw anyway, were the first two articles that popped in the Google search. Maybe it could have been a narrative for the mainstream media to try to change the channel as far as what's been happening in this recent days of Brett Kavanaugh's hearings. Possible. But I think it's a little more than that. But the thing that really crushes me the most is that these people were told that the tsunami warning was lifted. And it just didn't feel right reporting that this morning, and then right before going into work announcing the massive tsunami that hit. Now, I'm not trying to pump this up by any means, and I want to warn everybody right now. I'm getting ready to show you some video that is from a channel of a person who is just your average guy who apparently likes dirt bikes. He has his own YouTube channel. He's got 11 subscribers. Actually, I'm number 12. And he decided to put together a small video tonight, or last night over there, I should say, after the events of the destruction that was underneath these receded waters. And I'm just going to tell you right now, guys, I'm warning you. This is a disturbing video. There is going to be the link in the description. I'm only going to play a little bit. I think it's important that the news gets out and the truth gets out, because so far that I'm seeing on Google, I just feel like the injuries and the death counts are being played down here at this point, as if nothing to see here. But I'll go ahead and play this video just for a little bit. I'm not going to play it in its entirety. Very dark, not very good quality video equipment here, folks. So this was definitely done on his cell phone. Give it a minute here. But to me, we have watched this entire video, and we counted at least 6. And that's all I'm going to show. This is the guy's channel. The video is 3 minutes and 45 seconds long. And the very beginning, right off the bat, we see, unfortunately, 2 bodies from this. And I unfortunately also believe that the death toll will rise a lot more than what we are being told right now. So, I felt like he put this together to show the world. And that way, when we start hearing reports of minimal injury, minimal destruction, and minimal death, I don't know why it would happen, but it's been 24 hours and we still don't have a real full report just yet on exact structure damages or anything like that. Marty, do you have something to add?
Actually, I do. I don't know if I can reach. Let me hop over. I'm buried under animals and stuff, cats and dogs. I'm just joking. Jake's shaking his head at me. Really, I found an article. It looks like the Telegraph has found this too, because they're talking about a video that appeared to be taken at night. 30 people were killed and taken to the hospital. And so this is a vetted video that is circling Indonesia right now. So right now on this news article, which I'll post in the description, just found it, it's saying that there's at least 30 in this just small area. You watch this full video, it's like every 2 stops there's someone on the ground. It's absolutely devastating.
Thank you, Mari. And I know she was really concerned about even talking about this video tonight because it wasn't vetted. But look at the views on this, guys. This is just an average citizen here. He looks like a young man as well. Can't be more than 18, 19 years old. And 17 views. But I wanted to share this because I hope that the truth is coming out. And the Telegraph is the first website, you think, tonight that's actually...
I've been looking. It seems like a lot of the video footage on the tsunami is repetitive and it's all the same. You don't get a lot of unique perspectives. It's such a remote area, blah, blah, blah. So it's hard to find stuff. I came across this one, I don't know, 6-7 hours ago. And I don't know if this is the original poster or if it's been mirrored from somewhere, but I haven't seen a duplicate of this video, and it took me back watching it. It's just so sad.
I'm going to go ahead and go away from that. And again, we watched it right before the show, and I really wanted to handle this with kid gloves because there is the appearance of a child that was discovered during this video as well that had washed up from the receding waters. Just stuff like this. This is what really, connects to me today, is that my heart breaks for these people because of what they were told originally, and then they were told to let your guard down, and then at the snap of a finger, here comes at least a 10-foot wave. Some are reporting it was as high as 30 feet. So, very terrible news tonight from this region. Earlier today, they were rocked with a 7.5 earthquake with numerous strong aftershocks of at least 5.4 or higher. Another one at 6.7, another one at 6.1. Just terrible day today in that region, and hopefully we can get some aid to these people and help them rebuild and help them find their loved ones and hopefully minimize injury and death at this point. But this is very, very, very tricky situation. And the point I was trying to make was that, this to me has got the ingredients for a media blackout type event where we don't see as much or the truth. This video earlier too, Mari shared another video. Look at that. This roof is caving in from the earthquake. In the video, these people are crying and they sound very, very scared. very terrified. So again, we'll just have to sit here and hope for the best, and hope that we can get some global aid sent out there to help assist these people in recovery, and hopefully still rescue missions as well. I'll leave the links in the description, guys, and you guys can check out the video for yourselves. Again, I issue strong caution. It's not something for the faint of heart, I will say that. Moving on to some grand solar minimum news. I saw this on SPACEWEATHER.com, and then Anthony Watts over here at What's Up With That shared this on his website as well. And it's by Dr. Tony Phillips, and this was made yesterday on the 27th. And he's quoted saying that the sun is entering one of the deepest solar minima in the space age. Sunspots have been absent for most of 2008, and the sun's ultraviolet output has sharply dropped. New research shows that Earth's upper atmosphere is responding. We are seeing a cooling trend. And he also goes on to say, high above the Earth's surface near the edge of space, our atmosphere is losing heat energy. If current trends continue, it could soon set a space-age record for cold. These results come from the SABRE instrument on board NASA's TIME satellite. SABRE monitors infrared emissions from carbon dioxide and nitric oxide, two substances that play a key role in the energy balance of air 100 to 300 kilometers above our planet's surface. By measuring the infrared glow of these molecules, SABRE can assess the thermal state of gas at the very top of the atmosphere, a layer researchers call the thermosphere. It says here the thermosphere always cools off during solar minimum. It's one of the most important ways the solar cycle affects us. When the thermosphere cools, it shrinks, literally decreasing the radius of Earth's atmosphere. The shrinkage decreases aerodynamic drag on satellites in low Earth orbit, extending their lifetimes. That's the good news. But the bad news is that it also delays the natural decay of space junk, resulting in a more cluttered environment around the Earth. To help us keep track of what's happening in the thermosphere, Malenczak and colleagues recently introduced Thermosphere Climate Index, TCI, a number expressed in watts that tells how much heat no molecules, or nitrous oxide molecules, are dumping into space. It's definitely not no, it's nitric oxide. During solar maximum, TCI is high, hot. During solar minimum, it is low, cold. Right now, it is very low indeed. SABRE is currently measuring 33 billion watts of infrared power from the NO. That is 10 times smaller than seeing during the more active solar phases. Now, here is a graph that shows us the solar cycles, and it lines everything up to how warm our climate was during these periods of time. And here's our peak, which it was neutral. The warming had paused, so that's accurate. What I find sobering and convincing is the bottom of this graph here. And where we are presently, are we done declining? Is this going to continue to drop a little bit further? But we are below that cold, and a possibility of a deeper minimum than what we had in 2009. This paper right here, this little article that was written up by Mr. Tony Phillips is confirming that we are looking at some cold months ahead of us. And this should not be a surprise, because we talked about this earlier in the spring when we were talking about Australia and the southern hemisphere getting walloped with record cold early in the season. And I know a lot of us know that what we see in the southern hemisphere in our spring is what we're going to expect for our winter. So in other words, their winter is a preview of what's to come for the northern hemisphere, and it's bad. August values for the Dr. Roy Spencer temperature anomaly dropped significantly. And a lot of the reason why it dropped so much in August is that we lost so much warmth in the southern hemisphere, up to 1.04 degrees Celsius in Australia alone. And that really set, now everybody else around the world, the areas all registered lower, but clearly the biggest temperature drop was in that Australian region. So interesting article. I seen it on SPACEWEATHER.com and also at What's Up With That. This one kind of went a little more detail. I figured I'll go ahead and show you guys this, but nonetheless, same author, just explain a little bit more in detail here. And here we go once again. We are talking about, and I'll translate this if it'll let me. If not, I will tell you what it says. The gist. Good Lord. It's blocking me, Mari.
What's blocking me? Do you want me to fix it, Jake? Can we skip that article?
Yeah, let's skip it. I'll tell you what it was, though. It was Germany had basically missed the target on their climate treaty.
Which tab was it?
It was that one. It's not that important, though.
Well, I can fix that while you talk about
But
that.
it was basically talking about how it missed the target by 3%. And with that being said, that means Germany had to pay up. And the way that this article was putting it, basically it was saying, yeah, Germany's okay with paying it now because we're only in the millions of euros that is owed, but wait till that starts getting into the billions, and I don't think it's translated. It's not that big of a deal.
Can't you fudge it?
No.
Come on, Jake, give it a try. Just joking.
So I'll leave the link in the description. You guys can check this out. But basically, Germany is not hitting its target. Supposedly, they're poised to make their first payments. And this article raises the question, how long is that going to continue? If the bill continues to go higher and Germany does not continue to reach its target, it is, you know, when are these countries going to look at people and say, all right, that's it, we're done with this. This is costing us too much money. I think they're being good sports about it, and they don't want to swallow that pill, that's for sure. Elon Musk sued for fraud by the SEC. Tesla electric car company stocks tank. And they did tank. They were sitting in the 400 value per share. Now roughly about $277 a share. U.S. securities regulators on Thursday sought to force Tesla Incorporated chief executive Elon Musk out of the company he helped get off the ground about 15 years ago, alleging he misled shareholders when he tweeted he had funding for what would have been the largest ever corporate buyout. I don't think this is going to stop here. I think next on the agenda, after they bring him in for Tesla, they're going to be going after him for Solar City. Last I checked, Solar City was slated to have around 1,500 jobs in Buffalo, New York by February of 2018. As of late, I believe that number is between 500 and 700 employees employed by Solar City. There's still about 500 jobs off from where they were supposed to be. Now, why is this significant? New York State gave this guy a lot of money, somewhere in the tune of $750 million. And Elon Musk misled the state of New York. He originally had Panasonic slated as the maker of his panels. And at the last minute, or I might be reversing this, but he did an okie dokie and switched the company. So instead of it being blah, 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 it was Panasonic or vice versa. I don't remember exactly the order. Anyway, he still misled the state of New York. And they gave him all this money, and he built his factories, and yet it's still not even halfway full of the employees and the jobs that he promised Buffalo and the state of New York. So when I saw this story, I thought this is worth talking about because there's a lot of us out there who think this guy's full of crap. He is the Al Gore of solar panels. Let's just put it that way. The guy really doesn't have a clue what he's doing, and he's crashing and burning. This isn't the first time we've read an article about Tesla failing. But $420 a share, and now it's dropped to $277 during the after-hour trading on Thursday night. That's almost 10%. So he looks like he's in a little bit of hot water here. And like I said, I don't think this will be the last time we'll see an article quite like this. He will probably have to face what's going to have to happen with this with Tesla. And then, like I said, Solar City, I mean, what kind of a leash do you give this guy if you're the state of New York and you know that you've given this man a lot of money to invest back into the state and help it be prosperous, and he's not doing what he said he would do. So stuff's starting to catch up to this guy. The SpaceX thing can't happen fast enough for him because that might be the only thing that saves him as far as financially. He might be able to make enough money if SpaceX actually works. But there's a lot of folks out there that are doubting him on that as well. I mean, look, this Tesla thing's going down the tank. The Solar City's down the tank. What makes anyone expect the SpaceX moon trip to be success? Good luck to you, Mr. Musk. You're going to need it. Essay, solar cycle wave frequency linked to jet stream changes. Guys, I'm going to read most of this because I really feel like this is really important to the education of the grand solar minimum and climate. And I was very pleased to read this article earlier tonight. I feel like this has got the substance of the foundation of the space science and the space weather that we talk about here on this channel. And I think this paper should be reviewed a few times to help some of us out there understand. We start off by seeing the line, "It's not the heat, it's the humanity," by Francis Tucker Mann's PhD. Here we have a graph of our solar cycles, the current solar cycle 24, which is predicted to continue to drop all the way to the bottom, just like they do in every other minimum. Right now, we're being told that this current minimum is apparently going to be lower than the minimum that we saw in 2009. And here we have, right here is where we were in 2009. If we're going to be deeper than that, does that mean we're just going to be flatline with zero solar activity for several years? Who knows? Interesting times ahead. Here we go. Abstract. The sun controls the climate, not industry, not you, not me. It is the sun. Solar cycle 24, the weakest in 100 years, is stumbling to an end. The sunspot cycle averages about 11 years or so. There may not be any sunspots this week. In the spring of 2017, the sunspot number was low or zero, and Canada was plagued with spring floods from melting snow and heavy rainfall. I do believe this was written last year. Major floods have occurred in Quebec and caused a human tragedy and loss of habitation. The army was called in. The fire chief was lost at Cachet Creek in BC. Canada is wet from the Pacific to the Atlantic, which right now it's pretty soggy. It's not quite in the situation that it was last year. But Toronto Island is sandbagged and may be closed for several months. The Lake Ontario high water, the 22nd anniversary of the previous highest water levels records. This year, the Minden, Ontario flood occurred on the 11th anniversary. Okay, so here we go. The first two correlations. 22nd anniversary, which was 2 minimums ago, and the 11th anniversary, which was 1 minimum ago. Hurricane Hazel, 1954, also occurred during a solar minimum. 88 people died in Toronto, and Toronto abandoning living in its beautiful wooden ravines. Toronto, if you will, is within a Great Lakes cloud chamber. Interesting how they're lining up all of these flooding events, tragic moments, with minimums, like we have seen several times. History supports this hypothesis. The horrible Johnstown flood occurred on 31st of May, 1889, with a loss of 2,200 people. The Johnston flood of 1936 and another Johnston flood in 1977 occurred during solar minima, In 1977, 12 inches of rain fell in 24 hours when a thunderstorm stalled over the area. So we've seen a lot of that, between 12 and 18 inches of rain falling in just a 24-hour period in areas that don't get that in 4 months. But these phenomena are not restricted to North America or Canada. In early June, rescue workers battled to reach remote areas of Bangladesh hit by landslides and heavy rains that have killed at least 137 people, with dozens more missing. The landslides were triggered by heavy monsoon rains with 13.5 inches of rain falling on the area. In May, Sri Lanka had suffered 2,000 deaths due to landslides and 200,000 displaced this spring. On July 1st, 2017, China reported its highest rainfall in 60 years. The climate is changing globally, but it's not caused by the heat. It's the humidity. The effect on the solar cycle is seriously misunderstood. There is no correlation with the number of sunspots, though we know that the sunspots are a proxy for sunspot electromagnetic behavior. I kind of understand why Mr. Watts said he disagreed with some of this. I do think that our sunspots, there is a correlation, but the rest of this article to me is right on. Astrophysicists in Denmark, however, have teased out the relationship between sunspots and climate. It's the frequency of the wave. Very tight correlation to climate is coupled with the frequency of solar cycle. When solar cycles are shorter than 11 years, over several cycles, the planet warms. Listen to this, people. When the solar cycles are shorter than 11 years, over several cycles, the planet warms. When solar cycles are longer than 11 years for a few cycles, the planet cools. There has been a strong 95% correlation between the solar cycle and cooling and warming of the northern hemisphere over the past 150 years. Climate, moreover, is also tightly tied in what Zarkova has called the heartbeat of the sun. Ironically, Locklear in 1872 called sunspot observation the meteorology of the future. Ask your weather bureau if this is true. The emphasis has always been on the peaks, but the real story is the troughs and the wavelengths. And here's how it works. When sunspot peaks are far apart, the electromagnetic shield is down for a long period of time. Cosmic radiation seeds the clouds, and there is more rain and snow with the albedo reflectivity. The planet cools. Svensbark, 2016, another example. The rainfall makes sense in this context because cooling results in condensation. When the sunspot peaks are frequent, the minima have less effect and Earth warms. Again, another Svensbark reference for 1997 and another Svensbark paper in 2007. This pattern is completely consistent with the extremes of the thundery hot summers and cold winters of the Little Ice Age, which coincided with the Maunder Minimum. Sunspots are very few, completely absent for 60 years. Zarkova's research group is predicting another Little Ice Age beginning right now, today, or at the end of cycle 24. So many think others who study the sun and think it trumps carbon dioxide. Interesting to hear Zarkova say we're starting it right now. Was it your impression when we did the interview, Mari, that Zarkova really felt like we had a few more years of more? Let's digest the information first before we go ahead and say that.
Yeah, she was definitely just let's wait and see. A lot of people took her work, and I know at least in the States, overblew everything, like, and turned it into a sensationalist piece, which it's not. And if you watch our Zarkova interview, you'll see she ends that with, this is the research. It's very accurate, very solid. And the truth is, this is something we need just to watch unfold and, be alert and be ready for. So she never said in stone what was going to happen. It was more just, she sort of ended on the note, it's exciting. We live in exciting times. We're going to watch and see this happen. It's happened in the past. People survived through it, got through it, and we're going to do it again.
So with Zarkova now kind of ramping it up now, this paper was basically, this article was written in 2017. Again, we interviewed her that year, and she was a little more, earlier in that year as well, she was a little bit more reserved to that. So it's interesting to see her kind of jump this up a little bit more. But folks, that's what we've been talking about too, with the longer winters and the hotter summers, the thundery hot summers. This happened in the Maunder minimum. So there was nothing unusual about this summer. There was nothing unusual about that heat. So here's how NASA says we are entering a solar minimum. Our wispy atmosphere shrinks, which we've already talked about earlier about the thermosphere. NASA has learned to juggle satellites that drop into lower orbits during the solar cycle. Lower down in the atmosphere, the sun drives our winds, and the most important winds of all that rule the others are the jet streams and power around the planet, well over 160 kilometers an hour. When the atmosphere contracts, the jet starts to meander. The meandering happens because there is a problem in space, and that problem is low solar wind. That's when our jet stream begins to meander. And this study correlates with what I've learned as well about the meandering of these jet streams and low solar wind. More solar wind, the jet streams are tight and organized. The same jet stream is jammed into less volume within a shrunken atmosphere, hence the jet streams kink. The cloud levels are slightly but measurably lower as well, which we've talked about several times as well. You notice, and everyone can agree with this, we've got two sets of clouds. We've got high atmosphere clouds that are very thin and wispy, and then we have these very puffy, thick, low-level clouds, which occur during these solar minimums. Figure 1, the relationship between weather and jet stream Rossby wave. The meanders with ridges and troughs similar to those of the great river like the Mississippi, but far more vast, typically carry the weather fronts with them, with low pressure and high pressure zones, a ridge and a trough. The jet streams maintain their velocity and solar maximum, but wander far north and farther south, taking colder air south and hotter air north. The meanders are called Rossby waves, hence why temperature variations occur. Most of North America had 2 temperature swings in May from the teens to the high 20s and back again. Kinking of the jet stream causes extreme weather, which I'd also believe when they're saying the kinking part, they're referring to the Greenland block, where we start to see the kinking of the jet stream, which also brings in extreme weather as well. As the wandering is slow, the storms behave like broken law sprinklers. Under certain conditions, a normal weather front can cause dangerous flooding because although the jet stream is moving rapidly, the lateral course of the jet stream meander wave wanders slowly from the west to the east and occasionally stalls. Again, Greenland blocking. But pretty much here, the bottom line, and this is another part that I love about this, only matching your right hand with your left hand might exceed 95%. Not meaning to be glib, but 95% for solar leaves, only 5% for any other cause without considering the standard deviation. And what he's talking about here is what drives the climate. And he's telling us right here in this study that 95% of this is the sun, which only leaves 5% for everything else. And I've talked about how I believe ocean temperatures or temperatures on this planet and climate are controlled by the oceans. That's 95%, and then 5% is the other factor. So there's that number of 95% and 5% being the other cause. This study here says the sun is 95%. Other studies will tell you that our oceans are 95%. But the same is the same on the 5% for the other cause being human or industry or whatever. This paper is very, very good. It goes on to mention Henrik Svensmark and his work, talking about cosmic rays, seeding the clouds. Conclusions, I'll read this last part here. The logical progression is for rain to fall, clouds to clear, the earth to cool, and humidity to drop, and warmth to not return until sunspots return. Regardless whether or not this forecast is correct, we must understand the danger for flawed government science is that public science policy can lead to disaster. For example, mistakes like cholesterol, myths started in the 1950s by Eisenhower doctors, or the denial of lead poison water in Flint, Michigan by the EPA. NGOs, environmental lobby groups, industries, and governments are creating policy for the warming forecast, but serious cooling could be coming. Keeping our environment healthy is paramount to our prosperity, but free speech in science and not false consensus is part of the solution. Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of science technological elite. And that was quoted from Dwight Eisenhower. Again, lots of good references here. Sven's marked several times in Zarkova, and we invite you guys to check this out on your own. Take a look at it. And one more thing before I leave this particular story and move on to our weather outlook. The 50 days that we had this summer that were below average. Let's get something straight before I want to go any further, because we talked about warmth and cooling in the Arctic. And this summer, we had temperatures below normal in the Arctic. And we are now above average heading into winter in the Arctic. And that causes the situation of more water vapor in our atmosphere when we have a warmer than average Arctic and a cooler than average Arctic in the summer. Warmer than average in the winter means more snow for us here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that's exactly what's going on right now. I forgive me, Rob had sent me a graph that's showing the temperature averages right now. Maybe I'll get that up tomorrow or Sunday, whichever day we do the show. But it really kind of made sense talking to him for a little bit about it and understanding what that means. And another clear example of people like Paul Beckwith, who look at who will ignore the slightly below average temperatures of the winter, but will jump all over the fact that we're 5% above normal for this time of year. Small number, happens. Again, 5% above normal is still freezing in the Arctic, but that slight rise in temperature will put more water vapor in the atmosphere, and which will lead to a lot more snow than probably what we would want. So you factor in that today on SPACEWEATHER.com and What's Up With That, were a story that was featured about how our thermosphere is shrinking and that we are going to be setting a new space age record for cold. So now, are we talking about below Maunder minimum conditions? It's going to be a huge challenge. A lot more people on this planet right now than there was during the Maunder minimum. But with the talk of the colder conditions, the shrinking thermosphere, this paper here, which I think is everything that you need to know about global warming and global cooling and grand solar minimum, this correlates sunspots to temperature, to extreme weather, to jet stream, solar wind. It has it all. So you factor in the thermosphere shrinking, and then the discussion I had today talking about the reason why we're going to see so much snow, and the proof is in the pudding. So we do know that we are going to be looking at some pretty extreme snowfalls this winter in 2018 and 2019. I usually don't say things in that kind of a confidence because that's what weathermen do. They predict and forecast. But when you look at the data, and like we've been talking about this for months. I've been talking about this behind the scenes with people that we communicate all the time about this cold, about what's to come this winter. Even last year we were talking about how this winter was going to be a little different than last. We thought 17 and 18 was bad. 18 and 19 still maybe just getting up to the top of the roller coaster hill. 1920 is where we might need to worry a little bit more about cold and a lot of snow. So just an interesting paper. Lots of correlations. And, the same people that will tell you about you can't use correlations for science are also going to try to tell you that you have to correlate rise in CO2 with the rise in temperature. So hypocrisy at its finest. But this is a great study, great paper with awesome references about people who are actually studying the sun's behavior, the cosmic rays, the cloud seeding, of highly charged particles. And it also mentions that you're going to see more rain and more snow with this situation. So I think it's, time we start taking these things a little more seriously. And for me, as someone who reports on this almost on a daily basis, it's unfolding right before my eyes, as I was told 2 years ago and last year. So just wanted to share that with you guys tonight. Take a look at our GFS report. Not much has changed from what we saw last night in our broadcast. They're still putting Hurricane Rosa into the Four Corner area by October 2nd. Thankfully, the Gulf chances and everything are kind of quiet right now. This storm heads out of here, and then something forms across the Midwest, a big low pressure system. And there is that snowstorm that we were talking about the other night for October 9th. Not that unusual. This area does see snow like that for October. So that is not that really big of a deal. But plenty of moisture in the future cast for GFS. Now, for temperatures, Judah Cohen, which I really respect, and this guy is always right, it seems. And I thought maybe I could catch him being wrong. But going through this GFS, I want to take you through. This is through the end of September. You see our daytime highs in the 60s for the most part in the Northeast, keeping the heat mainly in the South, and that's where it belongs at this time of the year. But we do get a bit of that East Ridge warm-up once again, as Judah Cohen predicts that we will see a little bit more warmth than we probably would normally in October. So this could be our Indian summer for the first 10 to 12 days of October. I don't think it's going to last past the 13th or 14th. And neither does Judah Cohen. But here is the latest look here at the GFS run. We see temperatures in around October 3rd still in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in the Midwest, the South, and even parts of upstate New York could see an 80-degree reading on October 3rd. Now, a strong cold front, as you see, pushes across the country, and the 70s and 80s start retreating south of Pennsylvania, and by the 5th, we look to be cooling down just a little bit, but the east is not giving up yet as that warmth tries to hold on there in the Carolinas, Virginia on October 6th. But as we get past the 6th of October, we see a big cool down, the heat trying to build back up one more time, and this is October 11th, October 12th. We see a sharp drop from the 11th to the 12th. High of 80 degrees possible for Albany, New York on October 11th. So we have a chance of 2 days of 80-degree weather in upstate New York, where really it was not forecasted in the long term here at all. And as we see that cold front pushing through, temperatures in the 50s and 60s, and overnight lows starting to get into the 20s in Maine, parts of upstate New York. As we stop, this is daytime high temperatures. This reminds me a lot like last year's patterns, and this is what I mean. You got the Northwest, and then you got this ridge, and then it drops back down over the east, leaving the Northeast and the Northwest cooler, just like last year's pattern. And it's already getting in line right now. So that tells me that we're expected to have more meandering of the jet stream due to lack of solar activity, but also with lack of solar activity comes more coronal holes because the corona becomes weaker. So just interesting to watch. We'll keep our eyes on it. Taking a look at our SSTs, our tropical Atlantic temperature anomaly, the East Tropical Atlantic, slightly going up today to 0.312 above baseline Celsius. Looking at our North Atlantic, it is staying steady at negative 0.718, dropped quite a bit from September 15th. And then our Nino region. And Rob and I have talked about this too. This is a very big jump for this time of the year, and as much as it's kind of crept up and down over the past several months. But right now, the readings are still coming in at 0.677 above Celsius. Celsius above baseline temperatures. So as of right now, we are in the go for a possibility of an El Nino. We'll just have to continue to monitor this and see what happens. A lot of people were saying it was going to happen late winter, like around January, February. If these records continue to hold up, then we might have to recalculate that, and it might start a little sooner than that, maybe a lot sooner, actually. But again, I think at worst, we're looking at a Mudaki El Nino, and I think a lot of us will agree that this will be closer to a neutral El Nino than recent of past. And looking at our tropical weather, guys, Leslie has turned into a tropical storm, so she has intensed a little bit, just slightly, 50 mile an hour sustained winds. And Kirk is still a tropical storm, weaker winds at 40 miles per hour. We will monitor the situation as well, but also the good news that we saw in the GFS was that the Gulf looks like it's going to be quiet. The East Coast, thankfully, is going to stay quiet. But we are going to watch the Hurricane Rosa situation in the Pacific, as that one is an unusual storm. Not saying it's not possible to happen, but unusual that this system is staying put together for as long as it will. It is monsoon season already, but actually, folks, we got 2 storms moving through there. Here's Hurricane Rosa, and then slightly after that, right around looks like the 8th of October, we have another storm that comes through the Bajas once again. This is a little more east of New Mexico, going into western Texas as well. So we'll have to keep our eyes. We talked about that last night too, the possibility of 2 systems combining here. And what's interesting to watch is as you watch this second storm coming from the Pacific, it almost looks like it stalls out this front up here and makes it sit over its area a little longer, because this is a lot stronger pressure system than the one moving in from northwest. And as you see, it literally shields the weather from advancing and kind of just dissipates once that storm leaves the vicinity of the United States. So lots to talk about. Guys, bear with us. We just want to get the information out. We want to get the truth out. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the folks in Indonesia tonight. And actually, Mari, I didn't know if you wanted to report or not tonight. Say hello to everybody in the chat. Thank everyone for being with us tonight. It's been a long day.
Indeed. We have some great mods helping us out in the chat. Miss C. Gypsy, Rob, Radical Gardener. Thank you all for being here. A lot of new faces. And we have some great subs that keep on coming back and joining us in the chat. I want to say hi to all of you. Hope you guys have a great weekend.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Starman and Henrik. I haven't talked to you guys in a little while. It's been crazy, but I want to let you both know that I'm thinking about you, and hope I get to see you guys around a little bit more. Not calling you out, just letting you know you guys are on my mind. Hope all is well. And thanks again for tuning in, guys. We will be back to talk more. All right, guys, so we will get back to you when the time is needed if there is any more updates on the situation in Indonesia from the recent tsunami today. Until then, guys, we will talk soon.